Hi, and welcome to CITAM Church Online, this being the Youth Cafe. My name is Patrick Kuchio, the head of missions at Christ is the Answer Ministries. Now, have you ever struggled with some penetrating, piercing questions in the face of pain, brokenness, and heartache? Have you found yourself questioning God when going through a difficult time? Guess what? You are in good company, because it is normal to ask God some piercing, penetrating questions when you're going through a difficult experience. Now, I want us to consider three questions that would normally come to the human mind in the face of pain and heartache. The first question that normally comes to mind is, why would a loving and powerful God allow so much pain and suffering in the world? Why would a loving and powerful God allow so much pain and suffering in the world? I call that life's paradox. Life's paradox. The second question I want us to consider is, where was God when all this was happening? Where was God when all this was happening? I call it the silence of God. The silence of God. And the third question that normally runs through our minds in the face of pain and heartache is the question, how should I respond in the face of pain and suffering? I call this the human challenge. How should I respond to life in the face of pain and suffering? The human challenge. Why would a loving and powerful God allow so much pain and suffering in the world? That's the first question that deals with life's paradox. A loving God, pain and suffering. It's almost very difficult to reconcile the two. You see, another way of asking this question is, why do good things happen to bad people, and why do bad things happen to good people? I'm sure you've caught yourself asking those questions, just wondering, why would such an evil thing happen to such a good person? And why do good things seem to happen to some wicked people? Now, that question is an age-old question. It spans decades and decades. It was asked in the scriptures in the Old Testament by Job. It was asked by the psalmists. Even philosophers struggled and wrestled with the question, why do bad things happen to good people, and why do good things happen to bad people? They wrestled with this question and called it the problem of evil. The problem of evil. Why a loving and powerful God would allow so much pain and suffering in the world? Some people have wrestled with this question and dismissed the entire idea of God's existence because they cannot reconcile how so much pain could exist in the world. In fact, some people would say, if God is truly loving, then we cannot explain why there is pain in this world, which He created. Well, you see, this question was relevant in the 20th century. It's also relevant in the 21st century. Talk about the 20th century. The world experienced wars, 2 world wars. The world experienced the Jewish Holocaust. The world experienced the killings in Cambodia fields. The world experienced the genocide in Rwanda. Losses through earthquakes and natural catastrophes, shootings. But even in the 21st century, this question of why would a loving God who's all-powerful allow pain and suffering in the world was relevant even at the beginning of the 21st century. 9/11 happened and we asked ourselves, why would God allow this to happen to innocent people? And there were killings, mass shootings in Colorado, terrorist attacks in Nairobi, Kenya, where we lost 147 students at our university in Garissa. The killings in Westgate, where we lost innocent lives, about 67 lives. And most recently, 21 innocent lives killed through some senseless act of terrorism. You know, religious extremism, radical extremism. And people ask, why would God allow this to happen? Now, let me be very honest with you. And my honest response to the question, why would a loving and powerful God allow so much pain and suffering in the world? My honest response consists in 4 words. I do not know. That's honest. I do not know why a loving and powerful God will allow so much pain and suffering in this world that He created. I know some of you are disappointed. You do not know? Then why raise a question? Well, before you write me off, before you turn off this video, let's explore some possible answers. I call them possible answers because they are pointers. They are like tail lights, like red lights. Because you see, the reason I say I do not know is because I do not share God's mind. I do not share His perspective. I may have the mind of Christ, but I do not fully understand the mind of God. I am not at a vantage position where I can see things from the divine perspective. I am human. So my view is a bit hazy, foggy. You see, the Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12, that now we see as but a form in a mirror, but then we shall see things clearly. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. So it is normal to be frustrated in this life when you don't have all answers to all questions that you have in life, because we see things in a very hazy way, but then we shall know perfectly, says the Bible. So it's like driving through fog. I remember one time I was driving my brother to an armed forces memorial training center. He had been called to join the Air Force. And so I decided as his elder brother to drive him to college. So we left at the crack of, in fact, way before the crack of dawn, very early in the morning, and we ran into some fog. It was very frustrating because I am a fast driver. I get excited with speed. But on this particular day, I was so frustrated because I could hardly go past 15 kilometers an hour. But fortunately, as I was driving through the fog, trying to find my way to a city called Nakuru, I came close to a truck, I think that must have had some very excellent headlights and was doing some good speed. And its tail lights, the brake lights, were very clear. So I decided, let me just drive behind this truck. And sure enough, as I kept driving behind that truck, it cleared the way for me, and we got through a section that the fog was over, and I was able to overtake and hit my usual speeds. And I drove to Nakuru and back to Nairobi within about 3 hours. You're right, within about 3 hours I was done. I don't advise that anymore. But you know what? I was able to go through the fog because I was following some pointer. So let me share with us some pointers to the question, why would a loving and powerful God allow so much pain and heartache in this world? Number one, the first pointer is that evil does not proceed from God. Evil does not proceed from God. There is no evil in Him. The Bible tells me in 1 John chapter 1, verse 5, this is a message we have heard from Him and declare to you, God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. God is light. In him there is no darkness at all. So there is no darkness in God. There is no evil in him. In fact, the psalmist declared in Psalm 107, verse 1, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. God is good. This is the same truth that God pointed out to Moses in Exodus 33, verse 19, and told him, I will hide you in the cleft of a rock, and I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you. And I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. Exodus 33, verse 19. God is good. God is light. There is no darkness in him. So, the next time you find yourself wrestling with the question, why would a loving and powerful God allow pain and heartache in his world? Remember this pointer. God is good. There is no evil that proceeds from God. That's the first pointer. But the second pointer is that evil proceeds from our fallen nature and a sinful world. Evil proceeds from our fallen nature and from a sinful world. The very fact that you and I live in a broken, sinful world makes us vulnerable to pain and heartache. You and I will experience pain and heartache for one simple reason, that we live in a broken and a fallen world. You and I are part of the problem. Yes, our nature, we carry within ourselves a sinful nature that is not good at all, is full of darkness. And that we carry that sinful nature that is full of darkness contributes to the problem, to this life's paradox. Why evil exists in a good world? See, I know some of you are asking, then why didn't God just create a perfect world and leave it as such? A world that is free of pain and heartache. It is true. Actually, God did create a perfect world. The Bible tells us in Genesis. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, rather. God created a perfect world. But the problem came in Genesis chapter 3, when man sinned against God and sin entered into the world. Therefore, the world became sinful and evil. So the reason why pain and heartache is prevalent in our world is because our world is an evil world. It is true. Ravi Zacharias, that leading Christian apologist, with his colleague Vince Vital, made a very interesting remark that I'll never forget. They said, wishing God had created a different world is to wish ourselves out of existence. That wishing God had created a different world is to wish ourselves out of existence. What Ravi Zacharias and Vince Vital was simply saying is that this world is broken. And because we live in a broken world, once in a while, we'll go through some breaking experiences. Because this world is sinful and evil, once in a while, even good people will bear the brunt of sin and the brunt of evil just because they're in a sinful world. So why would a loving and powerful God allow pain and heartache, so much suffering in the world? Pointers. The first pointer is that God is light. There is no evil that proceeds from God. He is not the source of evil. He's not the source of your pain and of your suffering. Second pointer is that evil proceeds from our fallen nature and a sinful world. But number three, the third point I'll mention is this, that the paths of evil men and women lead to destruction. The paths of evil men and women lead to destruction. The Bible tells us that there's a way that seems right to a man, but the end therein leads to destruction. God will hold us accountable for every thought, word, and deed that we do in this world. Evil begets evil. Good begets good. So when you struggle with the question, why would good things happen to bad people? Don't be disillusioned. When you read the Bible in Psalm 73, verse 1 all the way to verse 17, you realize that even when it appears like good things are happening to evil people, their end is not always good. Their end is not always good because God will judge evil actions, evil ideas, and evil intentions. Let nobody deceive you that when you commit an evil, senseless act such as taking the lives of innocent people by an act of terrorism, that there's some good awaiting you in nirvana, in heaven, where there's some 7 virgins just waiting to welcome you to heaven. That is a lie. You take the lives of innocent people, you will be destroyed. That is a pointer to the question, why does a loving and powerful God allow evil to happen in the world? The first pointer is that evil does not proceed from God. The second pointer is that the paths of evil, the second pointer is that evil proceeds from our fallen nature and a sinful world. But the third pointer is that the paths of evil men and women leads to destruction. So what's the implication of this truth? We need to examine our ways. We don't need to yield to evil. We need to overcome evil with good, says the Bible. So it is normal to ask ourselves difficult questions. And the first question we are dealing with this week is a question: why would a loving and powerful God allow so much pain and suffering? Life's paradox. Continue asking, because God is not rattled by the questions we ask. Keep engaging. My name is Patrick Kuchio. This is CITAM Church Online, the Youth Cafe. We continue this conversation on our social media platforms, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. Please, let's continue engaging. Feel free, slide into the DM, ask us questions, keep this conversation going. Like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter as well. Our social media platforms are live and ongoing. Let's keep this conversation going. The Lord bless you richly.